We're close to election time. Donald Trump seems to be taking everything. Looks like he's going to win the election hands down. I want you to listen to me real careful. Everybody's talking about all the problems in the world, what they got to do to fix all these problems. The financial problems, the racial problems, and they all really believe, especially the young people, that we're going to, if we could just find the right, if people just cooperate and we find the right formulas here, that we're going to cure diseases, we're going to eliminate the problems that all the world is facing right now. And then when I go to tell people that the problems that they have are going to get worse and things are not going to get any better, they don't want to hear what I got to say. And let me tell you why. They don't want to hear what I got to say when I tell them how bad the world is, because that's where their heart lies. Their only satisfaction can be derived from the fact that the world can be a better place to live. See, this is not, but then they want to call themselves Christian. This is not what the Bible's about. This is not what God that created this world, not what you see now. He created the basic elements of what we have, and man chose to mess it all up by his rebellion and the things that he's done. So, okay. For the first time in all these videos, I want to make it clear what we're facing, what we're up against here. You've got all these people running around the world thinking that they're going to find an answer, but they're not going to find an answer, because the people that run your world, the world order, call them the New World Order, the Old World Order, it don't matter what you call them, the people that control the currency of the world, the Roman Empire, that's where the crux is. That's where it started. Sure, they got their affiliations and their governmental faces strung all over the world. They're into private industry. They own corporations. They own key things that makes the world tick. They own financial institutions such as Merrill Lynch. This world order that's so its tentacles spread all over the globe is mainly concerned with one thing: preserving themselves. You see, their first concern is that they don't want to lose their place. And their secondary concern, by doing that, to ensure that their place is comfortable and assured, they've got to keep the rest of the planet confused and running around in circles. So the whole thing is based upon lies and hypocrisy by this dynasty of assholes, whatever you want to call them, I don't care. They want to make sure that their place is secured. The Bible tells us and lets us know and reflects to us the attitude of the world order when Jesus rose Lazarus from the dead. If you'll notice, that was the last real miracle he pulled off. And when he done that, you need to look into the Bible and see what was said by the political structure, the world order structure in that area, and what their attitudes were. And it's hard for me to believe that these men can be so ate up with preserving their power and their control over the world through money that they don't stop and even ponder and say, wow, is this possible that a man could raise somebody from the dead? Maybe we better repent. Maybe we better submit to this God in flesh. No. All they was so ate up with just keeping their place that they said, we got to get rid of Jesus. If we don't get rid of this Jesus, we're going to lose our place. Read it for yourself in the 1611 King James Bible. We are delusional to think that this stinking mess that's run our world for hundreds of years is going to give up this control that they have over this planet and just start looking to see how they could help people. All of your wars, all of your problems, all of your deceptions, your assassinated presidents, and all the weird things that happen in our world that don't make no sense, you can trace it back to these people. And the Bible shows you where the core is in the Roman Empire, disguised as a religious institution. And you got to understand, look at what this world order has done to cover itself. Look what they've done to preserve themselves. You think they're interested in going to the moon? They don't care about going to the moon. They don't care about curing cancer unless they've got it. First thing they're concerned about is they don't want to be kicked off their thrones. They know they've got the world by the hind end, and they don't want to lose it. And they know if we see them for who they are and see their purpose and their intent for what it is, they know that they'd be mobbed. They'd be ran out. They'd be destroyed, strung up by their throats and downtown in front of everybody, and the birds pecking their eyes out of their head. They know. You say, well, it's the Bushes. This world order has never found a shortage of lowlifes like the Bush family to do their dirty work for them. All they got to do is pay off people to do what they want them to do, to push the ideas that they come up with, to implement these wars and cause the chaos. If they don't have chaos, if they don't put us in chaos, if they don't confuse us, then we're going to find out who they are. So they got to keep us fighting, and they got to keep us in wars, and they got to keep us chasing things that don't exist and talking about things that don't have any merit. And racism has a lot to do with this message, okay? And there's not going to be 100% of you out there that's going to really understand what I'm saying, but there's going to be a percentage that's going to get a glimpse of what I'm saying. People think they understand racism. They think they know what it is. They don't. The very people that control the world's money created this scam, this diversion, this chaos, by taking people out of the areas that God put them and putting them in areas that they really didn't need to be in, that would do nothing but cause problems. The Jesuits contracted boat owners to move black people out of the areas that they were their homeland, take them across the ocean, and sold them for profit, and then used them as a moral reason to accomplish another goal, which was to destroy the South, take their gold, their land, and they used the black people as a moral reason. They've been using the black people to confuse the white Protestant community. Most of your Protestants were white. If you know anything about the Jesuit order, you'll know that they were founded. They were started. The very foundation of the Jesuit empire, which is like the CIA or the intelligence of the Roman Catholic Empire. Their purpose was to destroy the only orthodox evidence that could condemn them as a fake. Their version of Christianity never intended to be biblical. It was to be phony from the very beginning. It was a copy, a very crude, sickening copy of what Christianity or the teachings of Jesus and the apostles, they didn't even come close. And they knew that man's rebellion and the mentality of so many of the people around the world, that they didn't really see it studying the Word of God and trying to find out what God's principles were and how important it was, and how that they would be ensnared and be trapped by so many tricks of the devil through its institution in Rome and all of its affiliates, its secret societies, and all the religions it has created. is fascinating that right here in our hands we've still got a book that gives us a true, accurate accounting of history. It gives us an accounting of what God's church did and what they're supposed to do today, what they believed, how they perceived God, what God's name was. These are things that I spoke about in the other video. You're living in a world today that don't even know God's name. Look at all these problems that we have in the world. They're not getting any better. And that's why this Donald Trump has become so popular, because here's a guy that comes out of the mainstream. Supposedly he's not part of the political structure. And his message is that he's not going to be bought and paid for. He's not going to have people that are telling him what to do and financing his campaign. But I'm leery. I'm leery because I don't think this man is going to jeopardize his wealth that he's accumulated, his family. I don't think he's going to jeopardize that. And when I think back on how they came against Ross Perot, they didn't want him in there. He wasn't part of their schooled, programmed agenda. And they scared Ross Perot out. They threatened him with harm to his family, and he ran. He got out. And I can't see any man that has a family that's going to risk the lives of his own family to try to help a world that really doesn't care to start with. But I know that Trump's got some supporters and that it all looks good, but I know that he's been given a lot of airtime. I know that even though CNN and the different news people try to look like that they're unbiased and that they're against Trump in a lot of ways, I think that's all a play. I wish Trump was for real, believe me. But according to the Bible, it isn't going to work. The world's going to continue to worsen. It's going to deteriorate even worse. Now, I wanted to get into this subject of racism. And if you consider yourself to be an intelligent individual, then you would have to bear some open-mindedness to what I'm about to say. You've had years now of all this anti-racism talk. Has it went away? Is racism making headway in the United States? Anywhere? No. It's getting worse. You've got a bunch of hypocrites that say, or programs, I'm not a racist. I'm not a racist. But it's not in their hearts. So we see with our own eyes that this hatred between different types of people is getting worse. It's not going away. The black people, they want more and more, no matter what you give them, no matter, they went from just wanting to sit on a bus. And they went from that to what you've got now. Now they want everything. They're not going to be, if you gave them Hollywood, if you gave them everything, what did they do with Africa? They complained at one time in history that they didn't want to be run by white people. Different governments, different countries was overseeing Africa, like Britain oversees so many parts of the world, of the United States, and they, by order of the Roman Empire. And the black people says, we don't want the white man in our Africa no more. We want to run ourselves. Well, I think there was a period of time where they actually governed themselves and they almost killed each other off. They practically destroyed themselves. So we look at anything that the black man has touched and it didn't turn out good. Now that's history. That's fact. Now you can sit there and try to make yourself believe a fictitious story that the black people was the ones that built the pyramids. I've never seen any real evidence in history that the black people could ever build or manage anything on a big scale without some very negative repercussions. Now that's history. That's fact. Okay? I'm not talking about what they're trying to get you to believe. So you can't even state facts anymore about different races without being labeled as a racist. So I want you to take that word that the Roman Empire has given you, and I want you to kind of put that aside for a minute and just look at people for the way they are. Let's look at the word preference or prefer. People have always, and throughout history that I've read, they've always looked at history as a way that we can keep from repeating our mistakes. Well, when you take real history out of our lives, we can't see the mistakes we've made, so we're probably going to end up repeating the same mistakes over and over again when you remove history. And this is what the Roman Empire's done. They've taken away our ability to monitor our own mistakes and our own successes. So when you take away a culture's history, and this is what they've done, okay? First of all, when God decided He was going to give out the different languages at the Tower of Babel, you can read this in Genesis, not that you care to read the Bible, but I want you to understand one word, scattered. The Bible tells us that God scattered the people. Who did He scatter? When God inflicted all these human beings with different languages, they began to seek out ones that spoke their language. So, here's my theory based upon what I've read in the Bible. The Asian people seem to speak the same language, so they got together. The black people sort of speak the same language, so they got together. Not by color, but because by language. And God gave different races their language. So every race, God gave a language. Now race has more than just the boundaries of color. Race has characteristics, emotional characteristics, intelligence levels. There's more intelligence differences in races. You've got different levels of intelligence. You've got, you take the speed in which a person can interpret information, okay? And they can interpret what something means quicker than others, and they can remember what they interpreted longer or better, and to communicate what they have learned or what they have, just take information. They can take the information they've learned and retained and the ability to communicate that information. So you have different races that are better at these types of things and more lacking or less able to do so. There was a study that was hushed up by the federal government back in the 60s. And I don't recall the name. I don't recall exactly where. It was a university, I believe in Texas. A man conducted, a professor of a college conducted a test over a period of at least a year or two about the black people's intelligence. White people and black people were given the same test. They were tested and graded as to how long it took them to read and understand what they had read, and how well they interpreted what they read, and so forth, and how they could communicate what they read. All kinds of this very extensive studies were given. At the end of the studies, the professor had conclusive information that the black people were sufficiently lower in their aptitude, their ability to retain information. It wasn't, I'm not talking about trickery or twisted linguistics. I'm talking about the ability just to understand what they read, how they could retain it and communicate it. They were sorely lacking compared to white people. They lacked the intelligence of the white community. And he started to release his findings to the world, and the federal government hushed it up, just like they want to hush up all kinds of truth. They want to hush up the Bible. They want to hush up anything, because you've got to understand the people that run your world. If all this truth becomes evident, if evidence of the Bible, and it was really brought out as to how clear the Bible is and how accurate it is, and all of these fantastic things that men like this professor found out about the different races and how there's more than just the differences of color, the world order knows that people are going to be a lot smarter. They're going to start asking questions that they didn't ask before, like they're starting to now, and Donald Trump's following is evidence of that. But you have to understand that this, take the word nigger for instance, it reflects more of an attitude of certain black people. It also reflects the attitude of certain white people. Blind hatred, bigotry. In other words, feelings with no concrete evidence or nothing to sustain what you truly feel about people. Most of you don't really know the figures as far as black people and white people. Well, I'm going to give them to you. I'm not going to tell you what business I'm in, but I'm going to tell you this. After 40 years of being in business, I can give you the numbers just out of my head. Okay? About 10% of all black people that you deal with might be okay. First of all, I want to tell you that the businesses and the businessmen that I have known in my lifetime, including my own, the black people don't spend money with the white people. You'll find out that black people, and some of you know this, black people don't tip white waitresses. They don't like to tip, period. They don't do business with white people. And I have operated a business that spreads out over 10 states. So I can tell you that I've got states that I could probably count on one hand over 40 years of the black people that have done business with our company. And out of that 10% that may do business with us, only 10% of them will actually make us a smooth transaction. So what am we talking about? 1%? The remainder of that 10%, they've given us bad checks. They've forged their mother's name on an account their mother closed like 2 years before the transaction. It is a hardcore fact that black people, when you really look at the figures that the federal government hides, they are murderers. They hate white people. And they've been, but here's the kicker, they have been taught to hate us. The world order, the federal Catholic world order, has taught the black man in a very subtle, clever way to hate white people. This was part of their plan. I can read you a document out of Wikipedia that literally tells you that. If you want me to, request it, comment. Let's see how many people want me to get that document out. The plan was to incite anger and hatred in black people, convince them that they were oppressed and deprived of so many things by whites, to stir up hatred, to keep the chaos going, to keep the confusion going. The more drama we have in our lives, the less we're going to focus on the real enemy. Okay? If you like this video, if you like this website, I want you to tell your friends. I want you to do something. You want to do some good for the world you live in? There is no good you can do for the world you live in without the hope of Jesus Christ. Okay? The Bible tells us that we have one God. I talked to a guy the other day. I got to tell you this. He tells me he's not a Trinitarian, but he believes there's two. He says he believes Jesus is one individual and God is another individual, and the Holy Ghost is simply the power of God. Okay. I said, now, you're really sure about what you're believing? Some people just are so rebellious. They'll know in their heart what the truth is, but they just don't want to face it. So we've got an angry world we live in, and people realize it more now through this Trump thing than they ever did before. You've got an angry, confused, ignorant world. You're no more out of the dark ages of the 14th century than they were. You've got more problems, more deceptions coming at you in HD. Okay? This guy believed there was two Lords. I said, well, the Bible definitely called God Lord. They called Jesus Lord. So do you believe that there's two Lords? And he had a look on his face like, well, he never heard that way before. He said, well, I guess there is. I said, why in Ephesians 4 and 5 and all through the Bible it tells us there's one Lord? Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one Lord. Ephesians 4 and 5, there's one Lord, one faith, and one baptism. They called Jesus Lord. They called God Lord. But you've got this stupid Trinity floating around. It's been around for hundreds of years, and people are swallowing this stuff. They might as well go stick their heads in the toilet. I'm telling you, there is no Trinity. The word Trinity is not in the Bible. This is another bunch of garbage that come out of that cesspool in Rome to confuse people, cause chaos, cause confusion. That's the only thing that's going to come out of this mess, because they know their sole purpose is to enslave the world through debt, through money. They enslave governments through debt. Governments have to enslave their people. It's a dog-feeding frenzy. It's a putrid way to live, and that's the way we're living. And you think that you're going to elect somebody that's going to fix this mess? If Trump was really for sure, and he was really genuine, he was really going to do some good for this world, they'd have done killed him before he got this close.